All right. Hello, East Central. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is going to be a very important edition, Facebook and YouTube Live. I am Brandon Oliver. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications, and I'm very pleased and proud to have with us the Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Roland Toscano. Mr. Toscano, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brandon. Great to see you.
So it's been a few weeks, right? And I mean, obviously we want to, kind of let school happen, basically, right? But it's been a few weeks. But can you give us an update on how the district's been doing?
Absolutely. So up into this point, we've got about 9,600, just under 9,600 students enrolled actively. That's down about 5% from where we were at the end of the year last year. That seems to be the trend in the area and across the state. In some cases, enrollment is down even more than that. We're seeing that some of our youngest learners are some of the students that haven't quite enrolled or returned. But we're optimistic that as things continue to improve and as the school year moves on, that we'll see some of the students that haven't enrolled in school do so. And we strongly encourage you to talk to your neighbors and your friends and family, and those of you who are on the call that haven't quite made the commitment to enroll in our schools this year. We encourage you to do so. Also, we've been operating the last few weeks on an emergency schedule, as you all know. That's enabled us to break kids in what essentially is 4 groups. We've got about 5,000 students that have still opted for remote-only instruction up until this point. They have not attended school face-to-face. We've got about 1,000 students that have been attending every day. And then we've got about an average of 1,800 students that attend with group 1 and another 1,800 students that attend with group 2. So that means that about 25 to 30% of students are on our campuses on any given day. Students have been doing a fantastic job with risk mitigation. We were really worried about students wearing masks and following those expectations. And we're especially worried about our younger learners really struggling to wear masks. And shockingly, probably because they've been doing that in their daily lives, either at home or out in the community with parents' guidance and direction and expectations. So we just haven't had any major issues or challenges with children following those rules. They've been wearing masks. We're very proud of them. They've been following the distancing expectations. Of course, we have markings all over our campuses to help kids have visuals of what 6 feet is. They've been doing a great job washing hands and sanitizing, etc. And an especially great job when it's breakfast and lunchtime. That's a little bit tougher because hard to eat with a mask on. So we have intermittent mask wearing there. And so hand sanitizing and washing is especially important, as is distancing. So very proud of our students. The students that have been attending face-to-face, this is a general thing that we're seeing. The students who have been attending face-to-face either every day or with group 1 or group 2 on our beginning of the year screening seem to be progressing and growing academically a little more than those who have not attended face-to-face at all. That doesn't mean that students who have been remote only aren't making progress. We've got many examples of students who are actually growing more than they have in previous years in a remote only environment, which suggests that in some cases, the remote only environment has been better for kids. But in most cases, the face-to-face setting has been better for kids academically. We've also continued to monitor the San Antonio Metro Health data dashboard on a daily basis. And if you don't mind, Brandon, if you could pull that up so we can take a look at where that is today. We've continued to see the trend line there moving from critical a few weeks ago all the way down to safe. So the light green and the green is where we've been in the last week or so. And of course, our corresponding reentry rubric shows us that we can really start to get more kids in our building safely. And so we're very pleased about that. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. We've also been monitoring the state level data. We report our positivity rates, as does every school district, to San Antonio Metro Health and to the Texas Education Agency weekly. And so Texas Education Agency has been reporting that to DSHS, the State Department of Health and Human Services. And so, Brandon, if you don't mind pulling up that dashboard, it's a little bit of a different look. And what that dashboard is showing us is since school has opened on a weekly basis, how many positive cases of COVID-19 have been reported. The first line graph there indicates that there's been 1.1 plus million students going to school face-to-face, and there's been a little over 3,400 positive cases. In the most recent week, we've had more kids enrolled in school face-to-face than we have since school started, and you see a slight uptick in positivity rates, but you can see that that trend line seems to be flattening. And if you get a percentage of a positivity rate percentage by dividing 3,445 by 1.1 million, you see that there's about 0.3% of positivity rates in schools. As far as staff goes, you can see that in the most recent week, the number of positive cases of COVID-19 for staff teaching in schools across Texas has went down, which again seems to be the trend line that we're starting to see with student positivity. 2,850 positive cases for over 800,000 school employees. So we're monitoring that as well. We're also monitoring, as I mentioned a minute ago, our eCentral ISD data. And since school opened August 17th, we've had 8 employees out of 1,350 that have tested positive for COVID-19. That's about a 0.5% positivity rate among staff. And we've had 3 students positive out of 9,600 students, which is 0.3% positivity. And, as you all know very, very clearly, we've been very transparent about our process and protocols for that. It's a tight relationship with Metro Health. We contact trace immediately. We get guidance from Metro Health. Within 24 hours, we personally notify everybody who has been in the environment and anybody that has been in close contact. And what we have discovered thus far is that none of the cases have been transmitted in school, and that in every case, because everybody was wearing masks and because everybody was following the other risk mitigation protocols we've been adhering to since we've opened, we've been able to contain the impact of any of those positives. And we follow that up by notifying any other staff or students, families who are in that building or in that area. And all that happens within 24 hours. And then we follow that up with a message to the community. And so we'll continue to be transparent. We'll continue to send our weekly COVID-19 data to Metro Health and to the Texas Education Agency. We'll continue to monitor at the county level and at the agency level, meaning the state level. And hopefully things continue to track in a positive direction. Again, our goal has always been safety first for students and staff. And our second priority has been to make sure that we get kids in our buildings face to face who feel comfortable doing so as quickly as possible and as safely as possible, because we know, as the data is already indicating, that in most cases, it is the absolutely best case scenario for student learning for them to be in our buildings face to face. And quite frankly, we miss them tremendously. And we're so happy to have the students with us on a daily basis that are here. They're already doing amazing things. Our staff is already doing amazing things. We've learned so much since March, and I feel like we're so much better at what we do because of it, and so excited about the future of our school system and public education in general. And so that's kind of where we are.
All right. So just to reiterate a couple of points, Mr. Toscano. So there have been, since school started, 3 confirmed COVID cases out of 9,000. I believe you said 9,600 total student enrollment. So that's an encouraging sign that the protocols and procedures that we have put in place here at the district and that this campuses are working and are keeping everybody safe.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Brandon. We in talking to Metro Health and talking to pediatricians and epidemiologists, and just kind of hearing from those folks across the area, the state and nation, it seems like mask wearing seems to be having the most positive effect on not only the impact of COVID-related contact and events, but the prevention of, getting a positive diagnosis, much less spreading COVID-19.
So that leads us into the next question. With all this being said, what can you tell us about the reentry and some updates?
Yeah, so we all know that the Texas Education Agency gave school districts 4 weeks of flexibility, and that locally everybody, for the most part, started remote only. We've been fortunate enough to begin to reenter kids into our schools since week 1, and have continued to increase the number of students in our buildings face-to-face each and every week, and we'll continue to do that over the next 4 weeks until October 5th. But what the agency also did was give local school boards flexibility to continue to give the school district flexibility for reentry. In other words, after the first 4 weeks, we didn't have to bring 100% of students into our buildings immediately from a Friday to a Monday. And that's important because as we continue to move more and more kids into our classrooms and into our buildings, we want to make sure that all of our protocols for safety are able to be assured and followed consistently, because again, we want to get our kids in school, but we want to keep them there. And we know that COVID's not going away. So we just want to be responsible. We want to be as expeditious in doing so as we can be, but there's a fine line there. And so we've just been, deliberate and careful at the same time. So we have 4 weeks of additional flexibility. So we're going to follow the same path we've been on, which again continues to invite families who want their kids in school every day back each and every week that we've been open, and we'll do that up until the 5th. Our goal is that on October 5th going forward, every student who wants to be here every day, face-to-face, will have the opportunity to do that from October 5th and throughout the rest of the year, provided that COVID-19 data continues to trend in the direction that it's trending, and that we'd have no local outbreaks in our East Central community, in our schools. So we're really excited that that's just right around the corner, a week and a half away ish. We also want to make sure that families know that if you've enjoyed the 3-day and 2-day alternating week hybrid schedule, if you will, we've been calling that emergency. If that's working really well for your child and you prefer to stay on that kind of schedule, you can do that for the remainder of the year if you so choose, or for any portion of the year that it still works for you. If your child has been remote only and that's working for you, and you prefer to have your child stay in a remote only learning environment, you can choose to do that as well. What we just want to be clear about is from October 5th on, we're inviting every child back to school face-to-face full-time if they so choose. Now, that being said, as I kind of alluded to earlier, we have some students that are struggling academically, not just the ones that are remote only. We have students across the system that are struggling, and we're really encouraging those students to start coming face-to-face. During the pandemic, we can't make you do that, but we are strongly requesting, not even recommending, we're requesting, if your child is struggling academically and they've been remote only, or if your child is struggling academically and you're really enjoying that alternating day schedule, if they're struggling, we need them in school face-to-face. So please take that under serious consideration, accept our invitation and come face-to-face. And we're assuring you that we've been doing and will continue to be doing everything we can to keep them and our staff safe. We feel very confident in our protocols. We feel like we've got a proof of concept in our positivity rates being what they are, and the fact that we've been able to really be responsive and transparent with our staff and our families when we do have incidents of COVID-19, and that's not going to change. And we are monitoring, again, the community level data, state level data, et cetera. So we're just not making arbitrary decisions. We're really being very thoughtful and careful about what's driving those decisions. Risk mitigation expectations will be strictly adhered to. Again, masks seem to be making the biggest difference, and our staff and students are doing a fantastic job consistently wearing masks, and distancing expectations are being followed. As we ramp up October 5th, we're shooting for class sizes face-to-face of between 11 to 14 students. That's 50%, and in some cases, if we lean towards that 14 students, it'd be a little more than 50% of our students in the classrooms. And that's important because we know that 50% of the students in any one of our classrooms is about the capacity for being able to keep them distanced the entirety of the day. As we get closer to 14, somewhere within 4 to 6 feet is easy to guarantee, but 6 feet, not so much. But again, if the data continues to show that it's very favorable and we're wearing masks all day, every day, and we're not going to have kids within 6 feet of one another for extended periods of time, we shoot for that 15 consecutive minute window, then we still feel like we can do that and do that safely. So staff's doing a good job of keeping kids moving, when they are working together in somewhat close proximity. At the secondary level, we feel like we can get students in classrooms face-to-face in the area of 14 to 17 students per classroom. We do have classroom splash guard or individual student desk splash guards or splash shields that we've been using in certain environments, particularly with our little ones in some of our specialized settings where mask wearing and distances are a little bit more of a challenge because of the nature of the student in the environment. And they've been really, supporting mask wearing in addition, kind of that second layer of protection in those settings. So in classrooms at elementary level, kind of push 14 after October 5th, or secondary classrooms that kind of push 17 after October 5th. Our intentions are to be creative about adding a second layer of protection in those particular environments. Similarly, probably our biggest challenge after October 5th and as the year goes on and we begin to introduce even more students and we'll introduce October 5th is going to be our lunches and basically our meal times, because students obviously cannot wear masks the entire time that they're eating. It's intermittent at best. And so that 6 foot distance is really critical to be guaranteed and maintained. And so, at the secondary level at our middle schools, we're gonna be adding 2 more lunches to spread kids out throughout the day when it comes to lunches, so that we can guarantee that 6 foot distance and keep everybody safe. At the elementary level, we've got a little bit more flexibility, and we've been able to manage that a little bit better, and think we're going to be in pretty good shape October 5th. But we'll make whatever adjustments we need to make there to include potentially putting partitions up at cafeteria tables to kind of give kids their own plexiglass cubicle, if you will, so that we can get more kids into the cafeteria, knowing that over time 6 foot might not be able to be guaranteed, but we can guarantee that if they're not outside of 6 foot, that they're within a contained plexiglass environment. So we're looking into all of those things. We're finding solutions for those challenges, and we're very confident that we can find safe and adequate solutions for those adjustments that we'll need to make as we reenter more and more students.
All right, so just to recap, October 5th, which, as you said, is right around the corner. It's not next week, but it's the following week, that Monday. Students, again, it all comes down to choice too. If they want to attend 5 days a week, they have the ability to go 5 days a week beginning October 5.
Yes, sir.
And then, but if there's still, if there's still some concerns and some apprehension, they could still stay with remote learning. Is there an end date for remote learning?
The Texas Education Agency has granted that option to families for the entirety of this school year. No end date. But also, I do want to say, given that we're still required to guarantee risk mitigation is in place, that if we see that some classrooms are going to be beyond the numbers that I just mentioned in elementary and secondary classroom settings, some of what's going to be happening over the next week is campuses are starting to level class sections. So it could mean in some cases that children may need to be moved into different classes. So there could be some schedule changes that come along with this, and I don't want to be I want to be transparent about that is possible, but it's what we're going to have to do to get all kids into our buildings that want to be here every day and still keep everybody safe. So some of that is going to be happening over this next week. And of course, communication with families will be prioritized and assured before that October 5th date happens.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, again, it's going back to choice. Parents have the choice, so if you need, if you're wanting 5 days a week, if you want to stay on the emergency schedule, and if you, want to stay at home, all those options are available to you. One consistent question that's been popping up since you talked about this, are the hours changing at all? In regards to start time, or are we keeping going with the same hours?
So we'll be keeping the same hours that we've been following. The start and end time is not going to change. What you'll start to see parents at the secondary level is, now that we're wrapping up the first grading cycle, students who are struggling academically are going to be scheduled into intervention and academic support during the asynchronous time block. So at the secondary level, obviously classes are starting a little bit later and ending a little bit earlier, but school start and end times are still the same. So those asynchronous blocks are there for two reasons. One of them is so that teachers have the time to service and provide feedback and give academic support and attention to the students who are not there because they're remote that day, or for the students that have been remote only. And so remember, they're managing face-to-face instruction, live synchronous instruction simultaneously, and then within 24 hours, they're working with students who have been working asynchronously. So teachers are doing Herculean work right now, and we had to build that time in. And at the secondary level, they don't have one group of kids. They have 6 or 7 classes of kids, 180 to sometimes 220 students. And so those times are critical to be built in for that, while at the same time, students have flexibility during those times to work on their work, to get caught up, to study, to do homework, to do things that they need to do to allow them to have some balance and to stay up academically. But as I mentioned a minute ago, now we're going to have the ability to schedule kids into some academic support, and they won't have an option, so they can't hang out with their buddies if they're struggling academically in the morning or in the last part of the day. They're going to be getting that academic support scheduled. So you'll see some of that, parents, happening October 5th and beyond, and some of it's already happening.
Yeah, and a big shout out to the teachers for through this. They have done an amazing job. So let's go on to the next question. How will parents be communicated with in regards to the reentry?
So the high school has already distributed a survey, and it closes Sunday at midnight. And it's just a follow-up survey, parents, for you to kind of reinforce what your choice is going to be. And you're going to have several choices. Again, as we've been talking about, you can choose to be face-to-face every day. You can choose to stay on the emergency schedule that you've been on, or you can choose to be remote only. And so the high school is asking for that feedback from you by Sunday at midnight, so that next week they can turn that around and make adjustments to class sizes, level classes if they need to, making those adjustments through the lunch schedule so that, as we have more students in our buildings, everybody can be safe. And what the high school is going to do is that by next Wednesday, your child's fifth period teacher is going to reach out to your family and confirm the information we received, so that you'll know, hey, listen, you asked for face-to-face every day. That's what we got. Is that confirmed? You say yes, we say yes. October 5th, you're coming every day. And so same thing for every other option. At the middle schools, shortly after this meeting, probably at 6 o'clock, the 2 junior highs are going to be sending a parent survey out, very similar, so that we can get clarification of what your wishes are for your child. That survey is going to close at the end of the day, Monday, for the junior highs. So you have a little bit more time, but it's not being launched until today. I believe the high school launched theirs yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. The junior highs, it's a little bit more complex because of the designs of those schools. They have to make more substantial adjustments to the ledge schedule, and they're going to have to balance probably more numbers of classes than at the high school. So they're going to need until next Friday morning to reach out to you by phone, parents, and communicate with you just to confirm that we got the message from you and that what your intentions are, or what we've scheduled for Monday, October 5th. And at the elementary level, we feel like we've heard you loud and clear. We've got good information of your intentions, but we do want to have your teachers contact you, and some have already begun to do that, just to confirm that we know exactly what it is you want for your child beginning October 5th. So by next Wednesday at the elementary level, if you would have heard between now and then from your child's teacher, just to confirm what your intentions are, so that on the 5th, everybody in the district, regardless of which school or schools your children attend, will know what the plan is for October 5th going forward.
All right. So just to recap, high school, I know they already sent out their survey. Middle schools will send out their surveys tonight, and the elementaries, they're going to be contacted. They're not doing the survey; they're just being contacted.
They're just being contacted. They've been, again, at the elementary level, they generally have one teacher. And so they've been really, really in touch with their parents, and they know exactly what the parents want and prefer. They just want to confirm that. And so there's no need for a survey there, but they will make personal contact.
Okay. All right. So it's question and answer time. But these questions have been flying. Unfortunately, y'all, I'm not going to be able to go back up to the top of this, so I'm going to kind of go with the most recent. James Sutter asked, "My son is changing teachers next week. What happens then?"
So I'm going to have to assume there that there's already been a teacher change for Mr. Sutter's son. So again, you'll follow the schedule that's been assigned for your son next week, but between now and then, you'll indicate to your campus what your preference is for your son. So if it's, again, to attend every day or to stay on the schedule that he's on currently, we'll program for that beginning October 5th. But between now and then, just follow the schedule that the campus has given you, and also know that campuses each and every week, to include next week, are inviting more and more students back whose families have indicated they want to come back every day.
Mari has a good question. Multiple children. Can I choose some to send some to face-to-face and then some for remote learning?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. We haven't had that asked before, actually. We've been trying to keep family groups on the same format, but actually, Madi, you can definitely choose your preference for your child. And to all parents, again, as I mentioned earlier, if your child's thriving academically and they're happy and you're happy with the progress that they're making, and you want them to stay in the school format that they've been in, you have the choice this entire year to make that decision, and we'll accommodate that. So if you have multiple children and you want some face-to-face and you want one on that emergency schedule and one to stay remote, we'll accommodate that.
So I have to read this one because it has my name in all caps. So Ashley Ash, Brandon, some parents forget to do that health link in the mornings. And the school line is always held up so long as staff stands at cars doing it with them. Now I'm sure many more will forget any answers to this.
So beginning very soon, Miss Ash, that screening tool is going to be distributed. The responses are going to be able to be viewed by individual principals and individual departments across the district. So currently, it comes straight to a central location here at the district office. So principals and staff across the district don't know which students have completed it. We have to communicate that. So it's just programming on the screening providers side, and we're feeling like in the next week or two that'll be complete, and we think that that'll expedite that, because What will happen then is families will start getting reminders when this thing's fully deployed. You'll be getting a reminder early in the morning before you even start heading to school that it needs to be completed. And so those reminders will help more and more families get that done before they come. And we'll also be enforcing that a little bit more as that tool is more completely deployed and working more optimally. But at the end of the day, appreciate your patience because again, all of this is new. We're doing the best we can, and staff are just really trying to be diligent at our direction and at the community's expectations, make sure that everybody's safe. And the first step in the protocol is that screener. So I would expect that it's going to get better and more efficient each and every week as the tool gets built out and as we get more proficient at using it, and families and staff get more familiar with that being a daily routine. So thanks for the question, Ashley.
So would people be able to switch, like do some weeks face-to-face and then some weeks virtual?
So again, parents have the choice. What we've asked from the very beginning, Ms. Jimenez, is for logistical purposes, it's a lot easier on us for child nutrition, to prepare the number of meals that we anticipate for students being in school, for transportation to know which students are going to be coming on which day. So we make sure we look out for them and we don't miss any students at bus stops. And just for teachers, for the management of instruction, and to know whether students are expected to be here or whether we need to check on them to make sure everything's okay. For all those reasons, it just helps if we have, a grading cycle commitment. But again, at the end of the day, if your child's thriving academically, if things are working for you, you're happy, and your teachers feel comfortable with your child's engagement and progress, there is some flexibility there. But as far as just fluctuating back and forth from one day to the next or week to the next, we discourage that, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think a soft commitment is definitely, warranted. I mean, at least to have consistency, and as you mentioned, throughout all the things that operationally must take place. But yeah, I mean, ultimately they have the choice, but it'd be, definitely wanted to have that soft commitment. So I have the comments are flying in. Like I'll look at one and then like 5 will come flying up. So it's really, folks, I'm trying to get the right questions and stuff, but
come on, Brandon.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. So I really wanted to bring this one up. Okay, so it's more of a comment than a question. My son is in high school. He was excited to go back to in-person learning, only to be disappointed it was the same as at-home learning. Is there anything that you can provide in regards to that?
So I appreciate the feedback, Ms. Lukasic. We'll look into that a little bit more closely and see if we can get more specific information. But, as I mentioned earlier as well, the challenge is that teachers are instructing some students face-to-face in their classroom, but they also have to be logged in live for students who are streaming synchronously. So they've got a class of part of their class of students streaming live, part of the classroom of students in the classroom face-to-face. And so they're managing both simultaneously. And so if you're in the classroom, the difference is you've got that personal connection. You've got the teacher accessible physically. Your classmates are there. If you're at home, you're experiencing the same exact thing that students who are in the building are experiencing from an instructional delivery standpoint. But the differences are what happens once we go offline. So the synchronous students are going to have to interact, via email, possibly. They may have to follow up with a teacher in a small group, Google Meet, but the ones in the classroom can actually get questions answered. They can get assistance with the work that they're doing independently. And again, they can interact with their classmates much more easily. So it is definitely the same mode of delivery, unfortunately, because of the circumstances, but there are subtle differences in some students who have been coming face-to-face. The majority really prefer it. So I do understand that it's not completely what your child would have experienced in a fully face-to-face without a teacher having to deal with the synchronous classroom as well environment. And we hope that we can continue to get better at that. But again, I don't want to make any assumptions. Ms. Lukasik, we've made a note here, and we'll want to follow up and see if we can get some feedback that can inform some adjustments to continuously help us improve.
So a lot of people are saying, ask Christina Hernandez's question. So I'm going to ask Christina Hernandez's question. If the curve starts going up with more going face-to-face, how fast will we go back to the emergency schedule or full remote again? Worst case scenario.
Yeah, worst case scenario, we can shift from one day to the next. So right now, every child in our district, and this is by design, folks, we've anticipated the probability that it could happen. The probability that, things could go south in the community and the governor could issue an order for all schools to be closed. And from Friday to Monday or Tuesday to Wednesday, we can be remote only. From one day to the next, we can say we're deploying the emergency schedule. And if you were in group one, you are now group one every day again, on that calendar. If you were group two during the emergency schedule, we're deploying that on Wednesday. That's the schedule we have to follow. And so we have intentionally designed what we've been doing to be able to shift from one day to the next, because we can't control what happens with this pandemic, and we have to be very agile. So that is a fantastic question, Christina, and know that that's what we've been preparing for by design.
I've gotten some of these. Tamika asked, where can we find the information for the number of COVID cases by school or the district as a whole since face-to-face instruction began? I think, I got another one similar to that, basically asking where can they find, COVID numbers, if you want to address that.
Yeah, so the same website that I shared earlier, the DISH's website, which is where TEA is reporting the data that we have to report to them weekly, is where you should be able to find that. TEA's intentions are to report COVID data by district, by school. And so we're reporting that information to them weekly. We're tracking that information weekly. If for some reason the agency does not present that in a manner that is acceptable to the community, we can compile that and present that to the community. We can post that on our website. And again, we are tracking that, and we are required to submit that to the agency, and it should be accessible there. If they do a good job, we'll just link that on our website. If we prefer a more clear format, then we'll create our own and present that for the community to monitor weekly.
Yes, that is the Texas Department of State and Health Services website, and we provide that every week. I did see a couple of questions. How are we communicating? When there is a positive case, and do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, and I'll mention it again because that's a very important question. Our commitment from the very beginning has been 24 hours, is start to finish, closing the loop on any case of COVID-19. So we have a team of nurses who have been trained and certified as contact tracers. Anytime we have a suspected COVID-19 or confirmed COVID-19, we immediately assign a nurse, a contact tracer to the case. They immediately investigate, complete contact tracing, engage with San Antonio Metro Health, and get the guidance from Metro Health with regard to quarantine, isolate, who all needs to quarantine and isolate, et cetera. Immediately, anybody that was in close contact, anybody that could have been exposed, gets a personal communication, and then all of the guidelines, the guidance from Metro Health is deployed. And then anybody else who was not exposed or in close contact but was in that classroom or in that school or in that building is communicated with within 24 hours. And then in the event where it was a classroom in a school, also once all of the folks who have been directly, we kind of start an epicenter and work our way out. Once those folks at the nearest epicenter have been informed, then we inform the entire school or the entire school community. So we kind of work our way inside out. We don't want to send a broad email out to the community and alarm people who don't know if they were in that classroom or not until we've had a chance to communicate with them personally. And again, all that happens within 24 hours. So we take quick and swift action, and it's been working since March. And again, I mentioned earlier that none of the cases that we've had confirmed have been transmitted in school. And in all of those cases, because folks have been wearing masks, when we've contact traced, we've confirmed that, and they've been distanced and washing hands and all of those things. Metro Health has guidance has enabled us to contain it. So in other words, we might have had a student in a particular school, but no other students were exposed because of all the risk mitigation protocols that were being followed. But we do, again, notify all the other students who were in the same classroom, rode the same bus, et cetera.
And I can personally verify that we communicated out to the campus's parents on Parent Link, with a call, email, and text message. So we do let everybody on the campus know as well. Angel has a good question, and it's one that I've seen a couple times too. Can you recap on the 5 days a week schedule and how students that are struggling with remote learning, how that's being addressed? I do want to point out another one was parents are feeling like teachers aren't giving grades back fast enough if their child is failing. So, I guess address those concerns.
So the first question isn't really connected to that. So I want to make sure I answer Ms. Aguilar's question. And I think what I'm understanding is if students have been struggling with remote learning and they want to come back face-to-face, or maybe it's responding to a comment I've made a couple of times about if the child is struggling and they've been remote only, that we're going to ask them to come back face-to-face or request for them to come back face-to-face, because it enables us to provide more direct support in multiple ways academically. And so we just see the trend of data suggesting that when students are struggling academically, we have a better impact on that face-to-face, and that fewer students are struggling academically who have been face-to-face, even if only 3 and 2 days a week. So I hope that answered Ms. Aguilar's question. As far as the grading question, that's a fantastic question. We're approaching the end of the first grading period, and we've had one progress reporting period. And this is also very common during the first grading period, is it takes a few weeks to start getting grades and evidence of a student's academic progress. And so we typically get a lot of these types of questions each and every year. Of course, it's magnified this year, given that we've got so many different circumstances with the way kids are receiving instruction, and teachers are having to, again, give feedback to kids who are submitting academic evidence face-to-face. But then you have the synchronous students who are submitting academic evidence in real time, but electronically. And then you have students who are engaging asynchronously, anytime throughout that 24-hour period, and teachers are having to go in and, evaluate that and give feedback. And so grades are lagging in a little bit more than they had been or would have been in a traditional school year. We had a professional development day today, and on the agenda for principals to work with staff on was the grading topic, so that we can be sure that we're being timely, that we're also as a system helping to mitigate some of the challenges teachers are having, balancing all that they're having to balance, and give kids and families timely feedback as far as how they're progressing academically. And lastly, what I want to reinforce is that as a standards-based grading school district, a child's struggles early are never fatal and they're never final. So our grading model is based on a child's continuous academic progress. And so if your child is struggling right now, their grades can continuously improve as long as they keep working hard and keep providing academic evidence of progress, because what our teachers are accountable for and what they're holding your children accountable for is showing that they've mastered the content, not necessarily that they master it at the same time or at the same rate that their classmates do. And so there's no opt-out. There's no avoiding that every child's going to have to master the content eventually. But we'll work on getting better at timely feedback. It is always a challenge this first 9 weeks. It's a greater challenge this year. We're working on it with teachers. Today was an important day for us to calibrate on that. But also know that if your child's struggling academically, our grading system supports their continued effort, and that eventually, as long as they demonstrate mastery, they're gonna be okay.
Let's answer Tiffany's question. So I always like the difficult ones when it says, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right that my middle school daughter, of course, does her work and turns it in. But for instance, if she turns it in incomplete, she's counted absent and gets a 0 for that assignment.
Thanks for sharing that, Tiffany, because we've been making it very clear that a student's attendance is mutually exclusive from their academic progress. So, for example, let's say that your child is working on an assignment and they're struggling with it and they don't get it done or they don't complete it in an acceptable fashion. They were engaged in school. They are in attendance. So if your child has been trying to complete work and their teacher is counting them absent, that is unacceptable, and that is not appropriate attendance accounting. But it also means that your child might not be making acceptable academic progress. So it's not okay that your child didn't complete the work, and we do expect the child to complete the work. So depending on how proficient they were on the portions they did complete, we have things called proficiency scales. We have rubrics essentially that say for a child to demonstrate mastery, this is what evidence we would need to see. So even if a child completes an assignment, it's possible that they could get a 0 on the assignment because none of it rose to the level of accuracy. But it also means that they're going to have an opportunity to redo that and make it right eventually. Because again, we're obligated and we expect your children, we're obligated to guarantee, and we expect your children to demonstrate mastery. And so if they don't get it right the first time, they got to keep on doing it until they get it right. But again, attendance and academic progress are two different things. It's possible for your child to completely blow an assignment, but they should not be counted absent because they tried. They were there. They gave it a go. They still need to complete the assignment and provide their teacher with appropriate evidence for them to determine they're making acceptable academic progress. Thank you for that, Tiffany. That's a topic we've been discussing quite a bit lately.
So, there's some people saying that the teachers are telling the students if the camera is off, your grade is not going to be good. But I'm thinking they're just wanting the camera on to verify that the student is there, correct?
Yeah, so that in this remote learning environment, there's a lot of things that we're learning. So, there's a lot of reasons why kids don't want to turn their camera on, and there's a lot of reasons why teachers want kids to turn their camera on. So, and I'm sure that you can, understand reasons for both. So, as a teacher, it's really hard to read expressions and to get a sense of whether the class is engaged, if they're following my instruction, if they're understanding. Sometimes as a teacher, you say, hey, can I get a thumbs up or, a thumbs down? Can I get a fist of 5? 1 if you're completely confused and 5 if you understand. Well, if the camera's off, the kid's really going to have to use that chat feature for me to know. But it's also hard for me to confirm whether the person on the other end of that is actually the student. And so, there's a lot of reasons why as a teacher, I want kids to be present where I can see them. But on the other side, sometimes, I may not want anybody, on the other end to know where I'm at and what it looks like or what I'm wearing or how I look. Maybe I just didn't feel like fixing my hair that day. Maybe I'm not feeling good. And so Google Meet they're in the process of upgrading several of their features. And one of the features that's coming is the ability to add custom backgrounds. And I believe that for a student who's uncomfortable with their background for any of a host of reasons, I'm optimistic that will be one tool that allows students to put a custom background. It could look in the background like I'm on vacation in Cabo San Lucas, or I'm at my favorite, sporting event. but I'm here with my classmates, and the people on the other end would not be wiser to the facts. So they'll know I've got a background up. So we're hoping that we can continue to improve some of that for both teachers and students on the other end. But I think that what the teacher is indicating is if your camera is off, it's going to be really hard for me to give you to make adjustments to my instruction and to make sure that, I help you when you need it. Because, I've been a teacher for a long time, and teachers can read faces and body language, and they know if students understand or if they're confused or if they need a little help. Sometimes students aren't comfortable asking questions, and we read those cues all the time as a teacher, because we're required to make sure every child learns and that no child's left behind and that they're making progress, but not all children are comfortable asking for help. And if we can't see them, we may not be able to help them in real time as well as we otherwise could. So I think teachers are just trying to manage all of that, but we also understand the challenges it presents for some students in some circumstances for a whole host of reasons. And so over time, we'll just keep getting better at it and working through it. And face-to-face is always an option that we prefer.
Right. And I mean, we're getting some, comments, again, saying from parents that they're getting not a lot of notification if their students aren't turning in assignments or not doing well. I mean, obviously communication is key. Definitely want to communicate with the teachers as much as possible. But I hate to bring it up because it keeps flowing over here.
Yeah.
But I mean, anything that you can offer.
Well, I'm a parent of a child too, and I've set up my my child's Google Classroom, so I get notifications. I get emails every day. I get missing assignment emails. I get grade through Texas Connect. I've set up triggers, so I get a notification based on a setting that a threshold I've had the autonomy to set. I mean, I literally get emails and messages multiple times a day, every day, that don't come directly from the teacher because of the tools that are set up through Google Classroom and Texas Connect for me to get that communication. That's one tool. So if you haven't had a chance to set those things up, we'll help you do that if you're not sure how to do that. But I also understand that that's only as good as the data that's getting put in. And so if you have teachers that aren't, adding academic progress in there in any routine interval, and then that's on our end, and that's what we're working on. What we definitely want to avoid is that we get close to a grading cycle ending, and all of a sudden we find out our child's struggling in multiple classes, and we had no clue, and we have a short amount of time to get that turned around. So again, that's not a new problem. It's an exacerbated problem in these times, but we're working with staff to fix that and to continue to get better at that. But again, there's some tools for you as a parent, for all of us as parents, that we have in place. And if those tools aren't set up for you or not working for you, we'll help you do that. Get with your child's teachers, get with your child's principal, and let's get those things set up for you. It's a window into your teacher's grade books. It's a window into their classroom.
Someone asked about tech. How long do you anticipate before more Chromebooks and hotspots will be available again?
So we just got a notification from the agency that our bulk purchase has been sent. So I hesitate to say that we're going to get them all next week like they suggest, because those dates have been moving targets. But we know, based on the commissioner's call with all superintendents in the state on Thursday, that the first batch of Chromebooks and all the hotspots have been distributed, and that we should be that they've been shipped, and we should be receiving those in this next week. So hopefully that's true, and if that happens, we'll get an all call out there through principals, and we'll start getting those extra devices that have been needed in households across the district distributed.
Surely is an interesting question. Due to the outbreak of the virus, will students be able to attend at least 4 hours of school to get their tutoring and teaching done in person for those who are struggling academically?
So, Ms. Smith, I'm assuming what you're asking is that if your child was if your child is remote only
I
and they're
think so.
struggling academically, is it possible for your child to come in for some tutoring, for some face-to-face tutoring intermittently? Maybe for 4 hours on a given day or a few hours on a given day. That's a really good question. And given all the flexibilities that we have, Ms. Smith, there's the ability to customize what the school day looks like, and how we can respond to provide academic support. I know I've said multiple times that face-to-face gives us the best chance, but I also am inferring in your question that you probably prefer, due to the pandemic, keeping your kid remote as to the extent possible. So we could definitely work out some sort of a plan that allows for some face-to-face at times when your child's struggling. How exactly that would look, I'm not sure. I think we'd have to take that on a case-by-case basis. But at the end of the day, we're obligated to keeping everyone safe, and we're obligated to making sure every child makes the academic progress they need to make. And so, we have a lot more flexibility for doing that than we've ever had before. And so there's no excuse for why we wouldn't work with you, Ms. Smith, and other families to find some sort of a customized plan to keep your kid on track and to, from time to time, get them back on track.
And we have about 3 minutes left, Mr. Toscano, and time enough just to get a few more questions in. I do want to remind people that a lot of the questions I'm seeing, and I totally understand from the parents that are just tuning in about schedules going back, changing back to normal, whether they are or not. That was addressed earlier. October 5th, what's going to happen? Surveys for the high school and middle school students and families, and the elementaries will be contacting y'all. So I've been seeing some of the same questions. I know parents probably are getting home from work and just tuning in. So definitely this feed lasts forever. So you can go back and watch this on YouTube or Facebook whenever you want. And we did address those.
Hey, Brandon, can I make a recommendation? The last time we had a really big set of announcements, you went back and broke that video up into shorter segments with content titles, so that if a parent wants a very specific question answered, they don't have to watch the whole video and try to find where it was answered. I think that we can do that because this is pretty important content today.
It really is. And definitely all stay tuned for that. Probably, Monday next week, we'll break things up into like small little video segments and address them. But we do have a question. Do we return our Chromebooks if we choose full-time learning?
We prefer you do not. You have the option to do that. But, we know that because we're in a pandemic, that it is plausible that at any point during the year, we might have to toggle back and forth between, what we're going to start October 5th back to emergency, maybe full remote. And if we didn't have devices available for your child and others because we turned them back in, then we wouldn't be able to be as agile as we need to be from one day to the next during this time. So, our intentions in ordering the additional devices was to make sure that everybody had what they needed. And even if they come back full time, they got access to it all year to include connectivity if in the event we've got to switch from one format to another in response to the virus. Thank you for that question. Really good question.
And it is hard to keep the littles, complying totally 100% of the time with the mask. But Leticia says, I do have a concern. As I have observed my daughter doing remote learning, a lot of students that are doing face-to-face do not have their noses covered or wearing their masks correctly.
Thank you for that feedback, Ms. Cantu. We're monitoring that daily. I've said multiple times on this broadcast that we're very pleased with how students have been doing with the mask wearing, et cetera. What I'm hearing you say, it's not 100% at the 100% guaranteed level yet. So that's not acceptable, and that's duly noted publicly. Keep in mind that all principals are listening to this as well. So challenge on, principals. The expectation, and I know the expectations you've had of your staff and the expectations they have of their students. We also all know that the mask wearing each and every day, all day long, in all walks of life has been challenging for all of us, and that from time to time, we come up for air, but we know that mask wearing makes all the difference. And so we're going to keep pushing on it. We're going to keep holding the line on it. We'll keep getting better. We need your feedback and your observations like that one, Miss Cantu. So keep shooting that our way if you see differently, because that is the only way to guarantee that we can get all our kids in school and keep them there and keep them safe. So we appreciate the feedback, and we'll pass that along.
One question I've been meaning to get to, I'm sorry, and I totally, it was transportation as it relates to October 5th and possibly more students coming back, and bus schedules. I know Sandy asked, how about the bus schedule for high school? Because if they're done sooner, they're just sitting until campus until 4-ish. That actually reminded me of the transportation thing. So I know that's a greater thing. Maybe you want to answer Sandy specifically, but then talk about transportation if there are any changes coming up for October.
No changes. So, I alluded to this earlier as well, that the asynchronous times at the secondary level, especially now that we're through with this, approaching the completion of this first grading cycle, the students are going to be starting to be scheduled into academic support and intervention, tutoring, and things even more formal than that. And so, some parents for kids who are tracking and, doing, on track academically, and they have the means and the ability to do it, have been dropping kids off a little bit later and picking them up a little earlier. The problem is not all kids have that ability. And so we run our buses during operational time. So students who may be struggling academically but don't have transportation, they're getting dropped off during that asynchronous window where they have time to get tutoring and get academic support and assistance. At the end of the day, same thing. If there's parents that can pick their kids up early because they're making adequate academic progress, then they have the ability to do that. But those who don't have the ability to have transportation available are at school and can stay for tutoring and that sort of thing before the buses run. It could be inconvenient for a kid who doesn't have transportation, has to ride the bus, is tracking academically, and has those chunks of time where they're kind of just there. And so we encourage students to, get into the library. We have a lot of things for students to do that are enrichments. They can bring books. They can bring their mobile devices and do things that they like to do on their mobile devices during those times. We, at the secondary level, have tons of clubs and organizations and extra and co-curricular activities that kids are doing during those times as well. And so we encourage all of those things, but our principals know at the secondary level that kids not having anything to do those periods of time each and every day all year long is not acceptable. So, if they see students like that, and if your child happens to be one of those, we encourage them and you to connect and find something, exciting and meaningful for your student to do during those times that they're there. And not to mention, that prevents them from getting home and having to do any homework. They can get it done during those times.
Yes, that's what I've been saying since the beginning. I wish we had something similar when I went to school, where you didn't work all the way until the final bell, and then you go home and you do more homework. They're getting an opportunity to knock out an hour and a half, 2 hours of homework. I wish I had that, and then going home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I got the rest of my afternoon to play video games or something. Like
read a book, do some push-ups.
Yeah,
video games aren't the only one, Brandon.
I hear you, but you know what I mean, though. I mean, that's
absolutely.
I wish I had that when going back to school. So last comment, it's just a comment. I just want to make sure people know to complete their 2020 census if they haven't already. Literally only takes a few minutes. I've already done mine. I'm sure Superintendent Toscano, you've done yours. You would just want to say?
I do. There's so many implications for the data that's received for the census, from the census, and we know that this is done once every 10 years. So much of the state and federal budgets are built around the census. But one thing that families may not know is that as part of the last legislative session in Texas, funding for schools in Texas is strongly connected to a formula called census blocks. And so census data is going to have a huge impact on our funding levels going forward into the next 10 years. And so it already impacts so many things in state and federal budgets, as it relates to funding streams and resources that come to communities or areas of communities. But it's also going to affect our public school funding in Texas. So, if you haven't completed the census, please do so. It's going to make a huge difference now more than ever, certainly as it relates to public school finance and funding. So I strongly encourage you to do that, please.
All right, so Mr. Toscano, we have ended our time here. I'm going to check out and let you finish this. But again, thank you so much for your time, for being so transparent during this time.
I appreciate you, Brandon. Families, thank you so much for your patience and understanding. Students, thank you for your hard work, and know that we're not letting up. I mean, you've got to make academic progress, and we've got to provide quality instruction for you to do so. But we want you in our schools. We miss you. We love the fact that so many of you have had an opportunity to come back. We completely are empathetic and understand that there's a lot of concern about the health and well-being of so many during this pandemic. And so if you choose an option other than face-to-face, we understand. And we're going to do everything that we can to provide the support that you need academically so that you can make the progress that you need to make as well. But lastly, please empathize and understand and appreciate your teachers across the district. They're working double and triple hard, and we've done all that we can to help mitigate that. But the reality of it is these are unprecedented times. They're pushing us to the boundaries. They're working extraordinarily hard to do the best that they can, and they're getting better every day and every week. And we do appreciate your understanding and your patience. But we appreciate your feedback and your candor, and know that it's important to us, and that our ultimate goal is to create experiences all the time, and certainly during this time, that please you and that satisfy you, and that ultimately meet your needs. And so we're committed to that. We'll continue to do that. And we're all in this together. So I wish you the best this weekend. We're going to keep moving forward together, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.